So now you have a first version of your app. However, since you don't have a backend, you'll notice that when you add data and then refresh the page, the data disappears. This is something that can be solved with Supabase. So this is how you use Supabase together with your Lovable project. You will need to create a Superbase project first. In this case, I'm calling it feedback-io. Once you've created the project, you can go to the table overview, and you can actually create your first table. In this case, I'm calling it feedback, and I'm going to add a property called content of type text. Once you hit on save, then you'll see that a table appears, and you can populate data directly in the Superbase interface. I'm going to delete this table and show you that there's a different way to create tables, which is directly using the SQL editor. Simply write the SQL command and hit and run. However, as you will see, GPT Engineer creates these tables automatically for me, so I'll also delete this table. Next up, I'll show you the authentication tab, which is where you can manage your users. In this case, I'm going to create a user with my email and a password. This will come in handy later. One of the cool things with Superbase is that they support a bunch of authentication providers in case you want to add login via Google, GitLab, etc. Superbase also supports storage of files and edge functions. More of that later. Once you've created your Superbase project, you're going to want to integrate it with your Lovable project. Simply select the project and click on Connect. This will take a couple seconds. Adding authentication to your project once Superbase has been connected is super simple. Simply write add authentication or add login in the chat. In this case, it wants to execute a migration that will create profiles for my users. I'm going to go ahead and click on apply changes. Once those changes are ready, then your application will be updated. And you should be able to log in using the user you created before. Voila! To persist data in Superbase, you simply have to tell Lovable what data you want to save in the database. In this case, I'm telling it to save feedbacks. You'll see it's writing a migration to create the feedback table since I deleted the previous one. I'm going to approve this migration, which will be run directly by Lovable. Once it's executed, then Lovable will proceed and update the UI to connect to this new table. Once it's ready, then I'll be able to add a new feedback. This time, when I refresh, you'll notice that the feedback is still there. If I now visit the Superbase dashboard and go to the tables overview, you'll see that my record is there. Next up, I'll show you how to use edge functions from Superbase, which you can think of as pieces of functionality that are a bit more advanced that will require to be run in the backend. Before that, I'm going to add a couple more feedbacks. Then, I'll ask for a more advanced feature. In this case, I want the ability to generate reports from a given timeline, and I want AI to create a summary of the feedbacks within that timeline. Lovable will then understand that it needs to create an edge function to create this piece of functionality. If you inspect the changes, you'll see that it's created a file within the Superbase/functions folder. Here I'm highlighting a request it's doing to the OpenAI API. For this to work, we will need to configure the OpenAI API key in the secrets management dashboard of Superbase. Once it's added, then I can select a start date and end date, and I can generate a report. This report will use the OpenAI API to create a summary. I'm going to go ahead and do some small fixes, like making the component scrollable. After fixing that, I'll create a new report. And there you go, a scrollable version of the same report. The last thing I want to do is make it so that users can download the report and store it as a file in their own computer. So I'm going to go ahead and simply write that, wait a couple seconds, and the button will appear. That's it.